House Democrats have an ambitious agenda as they take over the majority, from infrastructure to health care to investigations of the Trump administration. But their first priority is to end the government shutdown. Joining us now from Rhode Island, one of their new leaders, Congressman David Cicilline, chair of the House Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Congressman, what's the latest on where negotiations stand? Is your side willing to compromise with the president on the border wall, or are you in effect demanding his surrender?
No, I don't think we're demanding his surrender, but what we're demanding is that the government be reopened. We passed appropriations bills that were passed unanimously by the Senate. They were supported by the Republicans. There was an agreement on those bills. The president at the last moment changed his mind, and that deal fell apart. So we're trying to isolate the disagreement. So we passed again the Senate-approved version that it was the Republican path forward that passed the House in a bipartisan way with Republicans and Democrats. We sent that to the Senate. What we're saying is open up the government. We'll have a short-term extension for the Department of Homeland Security so we can resolve this disagreement. But we need to reopen the government. And the president has really held these other...
Let me just interrupt for a second, because Speaker Pelosi and Democratic Senate Leader Schumer have been hinting at this on Friday after the meeting. Is it the Democratic view now that there can be no negotiations on the border wall at all until the president agrees to reopen the rest of the government?
I mean, I think we believe the government must reopen immediately. I mean, it's having real consequences not only to the federal workers, but to the country in terms of food stamps, in terms of tax refunds, in terms of safety at the airports with the TSA. I mean, there are real consequences to a prolonged shutdown. The president doesn't seem to understand that, but it's really impacting small business. It's impacting people's lives. And so what we're saying is open the government. There's agreement, bipartisan agreement on funding the balance of the government. Let's isolate the disagreement, the Department of Homeland Security, and continue talking.
All right. Let's talk about the merits of a border wall. Here's what new Speaker Nancy Pelosi says.
We're not doing a wall. Does anybody have any doubt that we're not doing a wall? The wall, in my view, is an immorality. It is, again, a waste of money, an opportunity cost to protect the American people. But it is a diversionary tactic on the part of the president.
I want to ask you a specific question, Congressman. Why is a wall immoral? I'm not asking why it's ineffective or why you think the money could be spent better, but the Speaker keeps saying the wall is immoral. There's a wall or a fence around the White House. People build walls around their homes. Why is a border wall immoral?
I think what the Speaker is saying is that we believe in securing our borders. We appropriated $1.7 billion over the last 2 years for border security. The department has spent less than 6%. But we're prepared to do more because we need to do more. But we want to do it in a way that's effective, that achieves the mission.
If I may just press, why is a wall immoral?
Well, I think that's a question the Speaker will have to answer, but I think what she means by that is it doesn't reflect our values as a country, that America has been a place that welcomed refugees and immigrants, people who are fleeing violence and war. But I think the real point of that, the rest of her sentence, is it's not cost effective. It doesn't achieve the objective. Democrats are committed to securing our borders. We have voted to secure our borders and appropriate significant resources to do it. But let's use technology, let's use drones, let's use satellites, let's do cargo inspections, which aren't happening. Let's do things that will actually secure the border.
Okay, but let's talk about the effectiveness of it. Brandon Judd is the president of the National Border Patrol Council. He's been a Border Patrol agent for 21 years. Here's what he says.
Anywhere that you look where we have built walls, they have worked. They have been an absolute necessity for Border Patrol agents in securing the border.
Here's a guy who has been on the front lines on the border for 2 decades. He says border walls work.
Well, look, I think there's no question there are places we have walls and fencing and other kind of barriers. I think good border security is going to be a combination of things. But what we've heard from the president is he wants a big, great concrete wall that will be 1,000 miles.
No. I mean, let's be fair. He has given up on the concrete wall. He's talking about steel fencing now.
Well, but I think the reality is this is actually a fight the president has created to distract from the real issues that he's facing. The fact is the Republicans were in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House for 2 years. If this were such an important priority for the president, why didn't he do it at the beginning of his administration? He waited to the lame duck. Why? Because his defense secretary left with a strong rebuke of his foreign policy. His national security advisor's sentencing hearing blew up because of the seriousness of his charges. His foundation was closed down for persistent illegalities. The gentleman heading the ISIS effort resigned. I mean, it was a bad couple of weeks. So what does the president do? He shuts the government down, and he's distracted all the attention away from all of those pressing issues to the government shutdown.
But sir, the fact is, even the Washington Post today said that there is now a crisis at the border. There has been a dramatic spike in the number of family units coming across the southern border. I want to put up some statistics. In November of 2017, a year plus ago, the Border Patrol apprehended 7,000 family units at our southwest border. This past November, 2 months ago, they caught 25,000 family units coming across. And look at these recent incidents where Border Patrol agents had to fire tear gas at migrants who were trying to climb the fence and who were throwing rocks at the border agents. I mean, Congressman, the president is not making this up.
No, the reality is this is a complicated problem, and it requires a sophisticated answer. And I think the incoming chief of staff for the president and the outgoing chief of staff have both said a border wall doesn't solve this problem. We need to have comprehensive immigration reform. We need to have additional personnel. We need to use technology. So we want to secure our border and respond to these challenges, but we want to do it in a way that works, a way that will achieve the objective. And so what we're saying to the president is open up the government. These other departments have nothing to do with this. Do not punish the American people by shutting down government if you don't get your way.
All right, let me just interrupt because I got 2 minutes left and I want to get 2 questions in. The president said on Friday that he has the right, and he's even considering, and you heard it from Sarah Sanders just a moment ago, declaring a national emergency and building the wall on his own without congressional approval, using funds that have been appropriated for military construction. If he goes ahead and does that, what will House Democrats like yourself do?
Well, I don't think the president has that authority. He would have to meet a very high standard. Article 1 establishes the Congress of the United States and gives us the responsibility of appropriating money. So I don't think the president has the authority to do that. And I hope he will continue to try to work with Congress to resolve this disagreement, but open the government first. The government will reopen when the Republicans in the Senate and the president come to their senses and recognize that we shouldn't be shutting down the government if they don't get their way.
Finally, and I got less than a minute left. Finally, freshman Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, and I knew you were expecting this question, of Michigan, said this on Thursday night.
When your son looks at you and says, "Mama, look, you won," bullies don't win. And I said, "Baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the mother."
What do you think of the language, and what do you think of the idea of moving right away to impeach President Trump?
Well, look, Democrats ran on an agenda for the people to drive down health care costs, drive down the cost of prescription drugs, raise family incomes by rebuilding America.
I got all of that, and I got a little time, but what do you specifically answer?
I think we need to move forward on our agenda. At the same time, our caucus is big and diverse, and people are bringing their passions and reflecting the strong feelings of their constituents. And there are a number of people who think we should move quickly on impeachment. I'm one of the people who think we have got to wait for Mr. Mueller to complete his report so that we know all the facts before we take any action.
And real quick, yes or no, do you condemn that language?
Look, I'm not going to look. It's kind of odd to hear people on the Republican side who have not condemned the president's language in a million different contexts to suddenly be clutching their pearls over her use of that language. Like, look, this was at a private event. She can use whatever language she thinks is appropriate. The fundamental issue is Democrats are fighting for the people of this country. We're going to focus on issues that matter in their lives, and we're going to do our oversight responsibilities in a serious way.
Congressman Cicilline, thank you. Thanks for your time, sir. Please come back.
I will. Thanks for having me.
Up next, how